Do you solemnly swear that the evidence you're about to give in this hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Would you state your name for the record, please?
Stephanie Forrester.
Mrs. Forrester, what is your business or occupation?
My husband and I own and operate Forrester Creations. That is a design and manufacturing firm that deals exclusively in couturier apparel for women.
Turning your attention to the 9th day of October of this year, what, if anything, unusual was happening at Forrester Creations?
We were in the midst of preparing for our spring showing.
And had Forrester made any special arrangements regarding that show?
Well, by the very nature of the fashion industry, we are required to have a very complete security system, yes.
And why is that?
We deal exclusively in original designs. And so we have to be very careful and are always concerned about the theft of those original designs.
And how were these restrictions enforced?
We initiated a program of issuing identification badges to those people who were authorized to be on the premises.
Now, was this security system in effect on the 9th of October?
Yes.
Calling your attention to October 9th, did you have occasion to be at Forrester Creations?
Yes.
Did you notice anything unusual happening at that time and place?
Yes. I discovered the accused hiding in my husband's office, where our collection for the spring showing was.
For the record, you are referring to the defendant?
Yes, Sally Spectra Garrison, or whatever it is that she calls herself these days.
Was Mrs. Garrison authorized to be in your husband's office at that time?
No, she was not authorized to be anywhere on the premises.
Did you notice anything unusual about her?
Yes, I certainly did. She was disguised as a man. She wore a man's suit, tie, and shirt. She wore a wig, glasses, and a black mustache.
Did you ever learn how she gained entrance into the Forrester offices?
Well, we believe that she got the name of a person on our invitation list. We know that she lied to the security guard, and he issued her that person's identification badge.
Thank you. Your witness, counsel?
Just a few questions, Mrs. Forrester. Your son Thorne is married to Mrs. Garrison's daughter, is he not?
Yes.
And isn't that the real reason that you filed and decided to proceed with these charges? Because you're unhappy about that marriage?
No. I filed these charges because Ms. Spectra broke the law. She has done that for a number of years.
So you actually believe that she was there to steal your designs that day?
Yes.
When you found her, did she have any of your designs in her possession?
No.
Did she have anything that could be used to copy a design, such as a camera or even a piece of paper and a pencil?
No.
In other words, accepting your suspicions, there was absolutely nothing to indicate that Mrs. Garrison was there to steal anything, now was there?
She was illegally on the premises. She was where she had no right to be.
That was all?
That was enough for me.
No more questions. State your name, please.
Sally Spectra Garrison.
Mrs. Garrison, you are the defendant in this case?
I shouldn't be, but I am.
Were you at Forrester Creations on the 9th day of October of this year?
Yes, I was.
Were you there to steal something?
Of course not. I run a very successful fashion house of my own. I don't need to steal from Forrester or anybody else.
Please tell His Honor, Mrs. Garrison, why you were at Forrester.
Your Honor, I went to speak to Mr. Thorne Forrester.
Why did you want to speak to him, Mrs. Garrison?
Mr. Forrester was engaged to my daughter. This woman, Miss Forrester, had raised so many objections to the marriage. She was causing so many problems that my daughter and Mr. Forrester were considering canceling their church wedding and eloping. I went to see Mr. Forrester to make sure that he understood how very much a church wedding meant to my daughter. And that is the only reason I was there.
Thank you, Mrs. Garrison. Your witness, counsel.
Is it true, Mrs. Garrison, your company, Spectra Fashions, has been stealing fashion ideas
Wait a
for
minute,
years?
Counselor. If your client told you that,
Please,
you better
Mrs.
check it out.
Garrison.
She's quite a little exaggerator, you know?
Answer the question.
Sorry, Your Honor. I apologize. Yes, we may have had that reputation in the past, but all of that has changed. As a matter of fact, we have our own original designer now, my husband, Mr. Clark Garrison. We don't need Forrester designs, and we don't want them.
So tell us, if you went to Forrester's office merely to see your future son-in-law, why did you find it necessary to disguise yourself as a man?
I found it necessary because I knew if they recognized me, I would not be allowed to enter.
Was that why you were in Eric Forrester's office, looking for Thorne?
No. I was in the hall and I heard voices and I panicked. I went into that office to hide.
Oh, and you elected to hide in the very offices where Forrester's latest and most secret creations were being stored. Is that right?
I had no idea whose office it was at the time.
But you certainly knew you didn't belong there, didn't you?
I knew that Mrs. Forrester wouldn't want me there. And I also knew that my daughter's happiness and her future meant more to me than that. And I knew I had to be there.
Storm, can we speak to you, please?
Excuse me. We are in the middle of a hearing. If you want to talk to Mr. Logan, you will have to wait until we're through.
Your Honor, we have something to say to the court. Something that you ought to hear before this thing gets too far out of hand.
Who are you?
I'm Thorne Forrester. This is my wife, Macy Forrester. She's Mrs. Garrison's daughter.
Do you have evidence to bring to this proceeding?
I don't know if you could call it evidence, but we have things to say. Things that should be heard by this court before you make any decision here.
Well, I have a feeling that I'm about to hear something that isn't in a strict sense evidence, and that what these two young people have to say should be heard in private. What is it you wanted to say?
Your Honor, I don't have any doubt that my mother believes she's doing the right thing. For years, Spectra Fashions has been stealing designs, in our opinion, to stay in business. But I don't believe that this is the case here.
Why not?
For a variety of reasons, the most obvious being that Mrs. Garrison is not a designer.
Well, then why do you think she was there?
For the reason that she has maintained from the beginning. She wanted to talk to me about having a church wedding.
But why did your mother disguise herself as she did?
My mother doesn't always do things in a conventional way.
Mr. Logan, are there any questions?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Thorne, you and Macy did, in fact, have a church wedding, did you not?
Yes, we did.
Then one would assume that your mother has accepted Macy as a daughter-in-law.
I'm afraid that would be wishful thinking on my part. No, she hasn't. And that's the reason why we're here. Because we're both afraid that so much of this case is wrapped up in my mother's feelings about our marriage.
After listening to these two newlyweds, there are a few things I would like to say. First to you, Mrs. Garrison. You did a dumb thing, Mrs. Garrison. I'm sure you thought because your motives were pure that you were entitled to do what you did. But the fact is, you committed a crime. Oh, I don't think there's sufficient evidence to hold you over to grand jury on a charge of attempted theft. But I have no doubt that there is enough evidence to prosecute you for criminal trespass to property. Whatever your motive, you gambled and you lost. You were discovered. But there is a larger question here. Mrs. Forrester, do you really want to prosecute this case?
Yes, I do.
Then Mrs. Garrison will be prosecuted for criminal trespass to your property, and from what I've heard so far, she'll be convicted.
Mother, Macy and I don't want you to make this decision based on your feelings about us. We want you to do the right thing.
The right thing? If I drop the charges,
Then that will be the end of it. And hopefully the beginning for a more pleasant life for these two.
what would you like me to say, Thorne?
Say that it's over. Please.
It'll never be over, Thorne. I'll drop the charges, Your Honor.